On a quiet Monday morning, police cars flooded Maplewood Drive in Cedar Falls. Iowa neighbors peering from behind their curtains were stunned. This wasn't the kind of street where sirens blared. Inside the Holloway home, family photos still hung on the walls, birthdays, vacations, a smiling father with his arm around his two children. But beneath this idyllic suburban image was a secret so profound it would shatter the lives of everyone who thought they knew Daniel Holloway. Daniel was 42, a respected insurance adjuster, a dedicated PTA volunteer, and a regular churchgoer. He was married to his college sweetheart, Laura, for nearly 20 years. They had two children, 16-year-old Ethan and 12-year-old Maggie. To the outside world, they were the very picture of middle-class success. But every perfect picture has a hidden flaw. Laura would often say Daniel was a creature of habit. He woke up at 6 every morning, went for a jog, made coffee, and drove to his office. He came home at precisely 6:15 p.m., kissed her on the cheek, and asked about the kids' day. He coached Ethan's baseball team and volunteered at a local shelter on weekends. He was the dictionary definition of a good husband. So, when he didn't return home one Friday night in March 2022, Laura initially assumed it was work. A client emergency, maybe. But as the hours ticked by, worry turned to fear. By midnight, she was on the phone with the police. The next morning, Daniel's silver Ford Fusion was found parked outside a small apartment complex 20 miles from home. Inside were his briefcase, his phone, and a single, unfamiliar key. When police used that key to enter the apartment, they weren't sure what to expect. What they found wasn't a crime scene, it was something far stranger. The walls were covered with photos, but none of them were of Laura or the kids. A woman's purse sat on the kitchen counter next to 2 wine glasses. There were both men's and women's clothes in the closet. The mail on the table wasn't addressed to Daniel Holloway, but to a David Harper. Lieutenant Caroline Meeks, the detective in charge, later described the scene. It wasn't a murder scene. It was a second life. Fully furnished, fully lived. The apartment had been leased 3 years earlier under that fake name. The other woman was Nina Collins, a 34-year-old photographer from Des Moines. She told police she had been dating David Harper for nearly 4 years. He told her he was a widower whose wife had died of cancer. He was kind, thoughtful, quiet, Nina said. I believed him. The truth was, Daniel had been driving to Des Moines twice a week for so-called business meetings, staying overnight and returning home as if nothing had happened. He had separate credit cards, a different email address, even a fake LinkedIn profile. For years, he had meticulously maintained 2 parallel lives, 2 sets of birthdays, 2 holidays, 2 Christmases, 2 entirely different versions of himself. This elaborate charade might have continued indefinitely, but the financial strain became too much to bear. Laura started noticing late payments on their mortgage, which Daniel brushed off as accounting errors. The reality was far worse. He had drained their joint savings to fund his second life. When the market dipped and his commissions fell, he began borrowing heavily. Credit cards were maxed out. Personal loans piled up. By early 2022, Daniel was drowning in nearly $180,000 of debt. On the surface, he kept up appearances, but friends noticed the change. He missed meetings, his temper grew short, and he often seemed lost in thought. And then, one day, Daniel Holloway simply vanished. On the same day his car was discovered, Nina Collins received a voicemail. It was from Daniel. Nina, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You'll understand soon. That message was left at 6:48 p.m. On Friday, the last time anyone heard from him. By Monday morning, divers had recovered Daniel's body from the Cedar River, just 2 miles from where his car was parked. The ruling was suicide. Among his belongings given to Laura was an envelope labeled "For my family." Inside, a 7-page letter laid bare his secrets. I never set out to lie, it began. At first it was harmless, a way to escape, a story that grew bigger than I could control. He confessed to the fake name, the apartment, the debts. He admitted he'd planned to come clean before his son's graduation, but couldn't face the shame. You deserved better than the man I became, he wrote. Tell the kids I loved them, both of them, in both my lives. But the questions didn't end with his death. Where had all the money gone? Was Nina an accomplice? The most haunting question of all? Who was the real Daniel Holloway? The investigation soon uncovered another layer of deceit. Daniel had been embezzling small sums from his employer by falsifying client refunds. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to ruin him. When his company launched an audit in February 2022, Daniel must have known the walls were closing in. Police believe this audit was the final trigger. He built a web so carefully, Lieutenant Meeks said, that when one thread snapped, the whole thing collapsed. 2 months later, Laura drove to the apartment in Des Moines. She walked through the rooms of his other life, a space that felt disturbingly familiar, his cologne, his brand of cereal. On the dresser was a framed photo of Daniel and Nina on a beach vacation. He was laughing the same infectious smile she had fallen in love with 20 years before. That moment, a devastating realization hit her. It wasn't two different people, she said softly. He was the same man, just split in half. Laura never spoke publicly about it again, except for a brief, heartbreaking statement at his memorial. I still can't hate him, she said, but I can't forgive him either. Nina Collins, meanwhile, was thrust into a national spotlight as the other woman. Hounded by the media and public scorn, she quit photography and moved away. In a later interview, she revealed another shocking detail. Daniel had once introduced her to his brother, a man who didn't exist. It was just a coworker, playing a part to make the lie more convincing. He lived in stories, Nina explained. He cheated because he wanted more lives than one person could have. In the aftermath, Daniel's children, Ethan and Maggie, had to grapple with the reality that their father was not the flawless hero they knew. Therapists suggested that men like Daniel often build these second lives, not for the thrill, but from an overwhelming pressure to be perfect everywhere, for everyone an impossible standard to maintain. The Holloway family sold their home and moved away, seeking a quiet new beginning. Laura returned to teaching, determined to rebuild. The only memento she kept was a single photo, the four of them smiling in front of a Christmas tree, a frozen moment from the good years before the lies took over. In 2023, a podcast called The Two Faces of Daniel Holloway revisited the case, becoming a massive hit. Listeners were captivated not by a murder, but by the chilling psychology of deception, how an ordinary man could live two full lives in plain sight. Was he a narcissist, a sociopath, or just a man crushed by his own expectations? Among Daniel's belongings, investigators found a hidden USB drive. On it were video diaries, filmed late at night in his secret apartment. In one clip, a weary Daniel looks into the camera. Sometimes I think there are two of me, the man they love, and the man who can't breathe, he confesses. Every lie buys me one more day of peace, but also one more night of guilt. The final video was recorded just 2 days before he died. If you're watching this, he says, his voice strained, I guess the truth finally caught me. Maybe now the two of me can rest. A year later, a small oak tree was planted by the Cedar River in Daniel's memory. There is no plaque, just a quiet act of forgiveness from a family trying to heal. Laura and the kids attended privately. As she watched the leaves rustle, she whispered to her children, Your father wasn't the worst thing he did. He was also the best parts we remember. Daniel Holloway's story serves as a chilling reminder that evil doesn't always come with a warning. Sometimes it sits across the dinner table, smiling. It reminds us that beneath the most ordinary of lives, a hidden one can exist, waiting for the one thread to snap. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.